My name's Armin Hopp. I'm the president of ICoBC. A bit in the background, so Rolf is the go-to guy and the person who's actually driving this. I don't want to give you too much talk today. I think the main topic here and the common thread that we share is really the question how we secure skill-based mobility within organizations. And I feel that lots of the UN organizations have this on their agenda, even more than large corporations, because you have this move from one agency to another. And actually, as much as I understand, you even endorse this mobility within organizations just to carry over skills and get everybody into a knowledge stream and skill stream within across the entire UN. So this is going to be very interesting. Don't want to talk too much. I want to thank Rolf for setting this up and saying that I know it takes a lot of time to set this up, and it's been a bit of a rush here to set this up. So if something's not totally up to your expectations, just let us know and bear with us, because it's all pro bono what we're doing here. ICoBC, the interest of ICoBC obviously is to be the network, the background, the facilitator, and carrying the message of the value of badges and credentials in organizations. That's what we stand for, and we hope we can live up to that. Having said that, there's just one thing for housekeeping, and I'm keeping to myself here. We have we have a clear schedule. So for David, in the beginning, we're looking at 15 minutes for the presentation. Most of the other presentations will be 5 minutes, and please again bear with me if I raise my hand to stop it, because we've only got 45 minutes and we would like to stay within the 45 minutes to open the floor for questions and answers after that. So David, please take it.
Just one second, because we have a different order of speakers. So I send the last briefing simply because we have people dropping out shortly. So okay. The first one would be actually Michael from the United Nations CEB Network.
Okay, then I'll go first. Sorry, David. So hello everybody. For the few, well, for the couple of non-UN people that don't know about the CEB, so we're from the CEB, the UN Chief Executive's Board, basically the entity that coordinates across 30-ish UN entities, and my role is in the area of human resources, basically trying to coordinate the coherent activities and positions of the various HR managers and HR directors of the UN system organizations. And I see a few, but still a couple of familiar names here in the call, which is very good. I think I just want to frame that a little bit from our interest as the basically collective of UN organizations that we are. Because as mentioned, the permeability of the system, the basically mobility across organizations is obviously something that is of value, of interest for us. Recently, I think the focus is shifting and sharpening a little bit more to something that I think we'll see during kind of next year and the year after, and that is much more a discussion how we can manage professional groups and communities across the UN system a bit more diligently and stringently. So we know we all have HR professionals in various organizations. We all know we have controllers, IT experts in the various organizations, but we'll lack systems approaches to really manage those professional groups as professional groups in a way. And that is obviously something where certifications, credentials, badges come into play and can be an important infrastructural underpinning, if I may say so, because it just makes it much more transparent and, you know, where in the educational career in this skills landscape individuals are standing. Obviously, kind of that has an element of ensuring that the connectivity to outside of the UN system as well, because we tend to be a bit more inwards looking, which we shouldn't be. So, you know, also kind of comparability or connectivity to the outside world is something that is of interest for us. So if I just think of, you know, the big ticket, whatever trends or initiatives that are underway or will playing out, as I said, you know, it's about managing professional groups. A key consideration at the moment is also, you know, how that buzzword about mutual recognition across the agencies. So there's an effort to say, well, if I have been trained in one organization, you know, why isn't all of that recognized in other organizations? Or if I have been passing through selection processes in one organization, why doesn't that give me some credibility for selection process in other organizations? So that's why there's a need, I think, going forward for these compact certifiable learning activities and courses. And those of us that have been involved in either recruitment, selection, or learning know that, I mean, actually there can be a large number of use cases for, you know, credentials, badges, and things like that. And that covers, you know, from my perspective, all the mandatory training activities, which, you know, are applicable in most of the UN entities. I mean, so, you know, when you join, you're expected to pass a whole lot of different courses, from securities to ethics to all kinds of other elements. The question is, why do we have to redo these things again? Why don't we have documented proof that is transferable once we change to organizations? It's about language skills, of course. And it's about any structured requirements we might have when we move towards more, you know, technical career paths in these professional communities I've mentioned. One element worthwhile mentioning is that there's a thing kicking off at this moment, which is called the UN Digital ID project, which is something that at one hand aims at providing access across various HR-related systems in the UN sphere. So it's about identification and logging credentials, but it's also a path to work towards a, you know, call it a personal wallet of staff related HR information, which would hopefully also include course related, education related, training related information. And so clearly, you know, what we're trying to discuss here today is something that is of is a good underpinning and matches with some, you know, strategic and tactical interest we would have at the UN system-wide level, because it's basically a key structural underpinning of all these kind of elements I've mentioned. So that's why it's useful probably kind of to see, you know, how concretely could these things look like? How can we, you know, partner with LinkedIn and similar platforms, and how can we leverage all these platforms and the things that are ongoing in an outside world already, kind of to see that we get to a more systematic internal use, and, you know, and ideally we can see how that will help us also to
Michael, sorry, 1 minute to go.
career path. Yeah, so I'm close to done in a sense. So that's what I'm saying. You know, I mean, you know, in the best of all worlds, that whole badges, credentials provides you topic provides us an infrastructure also to further our development of these technical functional career paths, and saying what elements do I need in a certain professional community, and, you know, and then it doesn't matter that much on where exactly you get your exact education, your course kind of from. So that's a bit in a nutshell the framing I would just like to share from a UN system perspective. And with that, I'm done for now. Thanks so much. Back to you.
Michael, thanks a lot. Great stuff. Just moving on to Rupert, actually, Rupert Ward. If I'm not correct on the agenda, Rolf?
Yeah, I will cover for him because he is not here, so I don't know exactly. So he texted me that he would be here until
I told you bear with
until
us.
the half an hour, but I will cover for him because it's pretty simple. So
Okay.
when we talk about value of a digital credential, we look, of course, at the connection of that digital credential to an HR management system, or potentially even an identity, like a digital identity within that UN ecosystem, or potentially even a wider ecosystem. But we also look into how to provide additional value. So, and from the many conversations that I have had with L&Ds, recently also in particular with UNHCR or WHO, etc., learning that is officially recognized by a chartered institute or by a university or any kind of accredited education provider who are eventually now issuing some official certification is considered of higher value. So, and we might just very quickly think about why this is the case. So, like once when education providers, emerged with the University of Bologna and others and so on, and also the guilds, so they set a certain threshold of quality that spans both like on the inputs, and Ebba will later on say more about that, but also at the output. So, and they provide something which we can define as reliability, and this reliability is the backbone of trust. And so what they did was they served as connectors. So even between like different types of organizations. And that's the reason eventually that, for example, UNHCR looks into partnering with chartered institutes or universities and others as well. And now I'm just, for a moment, changing the head from ICoBC to the head of LinkedIn, because the project that we have done together with Rupert, and why I think I'm also to some extent qualified to speak on his behalf, is a project where we looked into the non-formal recognition in a formal context. Okay, so, and this is basically the link. So if you go through some LinkedIn learning courses, you can take this non-formal certificate, go to a university, and the university will tell you what's the threshold of quality that you need to pass in addition in order to get academic credentials. And so concluding, this can also be, in our view of ICoBC, done for informal learning that happens at the workplace. Okay, so that can be recognized and then, issued ECTS or central or this continuing education units or whatever for that. And we think it also creates a higher value of a badge or credential because it allows more freedom. Not only the freedom to take a kind of placement, as Michael outlined it before, in any kind of position within the UN ecosystem, but also to pursue potentially an academic career or obtain a degree in that respect. That was the input that I wanted to pass on, which might play later on a role when we go into the workshop format. So part number 2, where we are discussing, okay, what potential bridges we can implement for HR, but also on the side of the education providers. Thank you.
Thank you, Rolf. Rupert will be happy to see that you stayed in time for him. Next one up, so we've now heard a bit about how to link course completion and academic credentials. Now we'll hear Ebba. Thank you. The quality as connector between batch and academic programs. Ebba, 5 minutes again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm greeting you from Sweden. I have worked with ICoBC with the taxonomy and the quality grid, which is published also on our webpage. So I will say something about the quality aspects. So we all know that upskilling, reskilling, and even unskilling is very, very important today. And and also we know that having a strong skill set is essential for professional development and enables job transitions to meet ever-changing labor market demands. It also improves social inclusion and is good for the competitiveness of the economy. I just got the latest figures from the European Commission yesterday, and they say that 60% of all adults should participate in training every year by 2030. So we need to do something about that to meet those demands. And some issues to meet that is about to develop individual learning accounts and to work with the micro-credentials. And for that, we also know that many of the organizations, as you are here today, will all be issuers of micro-credentials, and sometimes together with universities. And that is why it is needed to have a common understanding what it is about and what quality is about, because micro-credentials are very much based on, of course, facts and figures, but also very much about trust. And quality leads to trust, as well as trust lead to quality. So that is why it is important. And this underline the value of micro-credentials. So we need to have a common understanding about quality dimensions, and we need to negotiate about the values. And also, as was mentioned earlier on, to develop the ecosystem of applying, adapting, and develop micro-credentials. And about the common understanding about quality, it used to be said that there are different a number of different dimensions, which also are seen in the quality grid we developed with the ICoBC. And that used to be like quality, of course, as an over umbrella term. And that is about standards and how to meet the providers' demands. It is about transparency, about workload and the qualification frameworks and systems, and information on the offer of micro-credentials. It is about the relevance. It is about valid assessment, about learning pathways, about recognition. They should be portable and stackable. And of course, very important to be learner-centered. And also very important to be authentic, to really meet what is asking for. And also about information and guidance. So those are the maybe overall quality dimensions. And of course, they can be both negotiated and also discussed further on in a broader perspective. So with that, I will stop for now. I think it was under my 5 minutes.
Unbelievable. I just have to stop my mobile from making this noise again. So thanks, Ebba. So Ebba is working with ICoBC on the quality grid. If you're interested in more, you can go to the ICoBC website. Lots of this stuff is on the website. And I think Ebba is probably open for every question via LinkedIn or
absolutely.
I think so. I'm wasting time here. You can see that. So we're moving on to the best practice section now with digitizing training certificates with open badges between Wambeke and Eiman Elmasry. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Yeah, thanks, Armin. This is Eiman, and I'm speaking to you from Turin, Italy. My organization is the International Training Center of the International Labour Organization, which is another UN organization. So Ebba, if you allow me, I might use the remaining 1 or 2 minutes of your time. So I'll try to make this as fast as possible. Yes, so, okay, so I'm speaking also on behalf of Tom Wambeke, who was supposed to join me today, but he's not there. So I'll take you through a very, if you want to say, a really fast journey along our recent work with digital credentials, which actually started only last year. And I suppose we are at a very good point here. So if you allow me, I can share my screen. I guess I have this option here. So I'll share. Okay. Do you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So what happened actually last year with digital transformation and everything that we have been already working on long before the COVID pandemic, we also, started talking about the digital credentials in early March, like immediately, and it was part of our institutional digital transformation process, which was only accelerated through the pandemic and did not start. So it was also part of our working on our quality assurance system, which is also inspired by the ISO standards. So what we had at that time is, like with every other organization, paper-based PDFs, printing and mailing certificates around the world. People used to take screenshots and pictures of their certificates to share their achievements with a huge physical archive that we still have, which was like difficult to maintain, difficult to verify, like every kind of problem that most of you are aware related to credentials. So we thought about, okay, so this is possible, this is happening. We have the option of having digital credentials in our lives. So we immediately started talking about it. We looked on the world best practices. We evaluated our needs and priorities. We understood that we need to act really, really fast immediately, and we had to make an immediate choice. We had priorities related to maybe being already compatible with our infrastructures, our digital learning platforms, something that we can implement immediately, that something that we can provide us with the stacked options of learning, something that will support our future on how we see us doing our work in the future with the minimal manual intervention, with automation and everything that can be really immediately applicable. We did it. We chose a provider. We used immediately digital credentials. We moved in spite of that. We actually expected some resistance when it comes to changing the traditional way of doing things. Of course, every organization can face this, but we moved ahead. We help people to learn how to make use of this as well, to streamline and standardize our processes. So actually, I can say that since September of last year till today, we issued around 20,000 digital credentials. Starting from our first day, we're almost there, around the 20,000 credentials. And the surprise is that everyone's happy. Everyone's happy about the portability, the usability, the way we can easily share the credentials. Our internal colleagues are so happy about having a streamlined, agile process in place. Our learners and participants are so happy about this feature. They even keep asking us about, can we also issue our certificates from 10 years ago in a digital format, which of course is not quite easy now. We experimented with stacking our credentials, and now I can link this to what we are talking about here. We experimented internally on having our diploma programs, like stacking one credential from a course with another credential from another course to reach a diploma level kind of credential. We are also still experimenting with having different units work together on a certain stacked kind of credential. And I'm so curious about how to make it also happen between different UN organizations, even academic organizations, so that we can also reduce the time of preparing a big, let's say, a massive kind of credential, while reducing our efforts and combining our efforts together. Of course, like all the languages, the social media footprint has been a very strong promotional option. And if you can see my screen right now, do you see the blue one, the 20,000 digital credentials? Can you confirm, please, that this is the one that you see? Yeah. Yes. So if I show you like really quickly what happened since September 2020 of last year, the amount of credentials issued every month, we can, in the beginning, you will see that always the views of the credentials on social media go together with the issuance, go together with the shares on the social media. And the shares are not like very simple kind of shares. No, they are shares with text. So the text can, like, it's a very easy, effective and efficient promotional tool. So our participants are actually the people who are helping us promote our work, our courses, mentioning the skills they learned, mentioning the people who helped in their learning, our staff. our, our resource persons. It helps in our network and connectivity with the world. So if you see like towards the end, we have credentials issued, but the views are exponential. So it's not going anymore with the credentials issued. It's like an exponential thing happening now. So which again, a very powerful promotion tool. Our participants engage with the credentials, not only see them, engage in terms of like they share, they download the PDFs, they do something really, an action with the credential. 6 of 10 participants actively engage with their credentials, not just view the credential anymore. If you go to LinkedIn and search maybe ITCILO digital credential or ITCILO certificate, you will find thousands and thousands of shares with very interesting stories. So these are some of them with every kind of language from every part of the world, which for us is very, very precious because we always put our learners at the core of the process. So I can stop here now and I will share with you in the chat maybe some links that can give you more idea about what we're doing here. Thank you so much.
Eiman, a very, very impressive presentation. Also the tool you're using. The content is obviously what's most important here. I'd say it's almost, it's a very good best practice on the application of badges and credentials, also on popularizing it and making people be proud of it and the staff be proud of it. We're moving now on to Esther Grieder from the Humanitarian Leadership Academy with a Humanitarian Leadership Academy and Open Badges. Are you here?
Yep, I'm here. Can you see
Oh,
me?
hi. So here, this part of my screen. So without further ado, please start.
Perfect. Okay, let me just share some slides as well, if I can. Yeah, there we go. Yep, so I'm Esther and I work for the Humanitarian Leadership Academy, which is part of the Save the Children network. And we run a program called HPAS. And as you can see, we run it in partnership with a number of other organisations that sit on our steering committee. You can see them at the bottom there. And I guess there's been sort of several years of sort of thought gone into it, but it really launched at the start of 2019. So it's still a relatively new project. So at HPAS, we say that humanitarian response is only as good as the people that deliver it. So with that in mind, it's really important that the right people are getting deployed into humanitarian situations and that they have the evidence in order to be able to back their deployment and that can be quickly reviewed and verified. Which is why we've set up My HPAS, which is a profile that can be used by humanitarians across the sector in order to gather digital badges as evidence of their skills and experience. So it can be used by anyone working in sort of humanitarian and development work or seeking to be involved in it in the future. They don't have to be currently attached to an organisation. And they gather badges that are issued by a growing number of organisations across the sector. And so currently 28 organisations. And some of those organisations issue for their own staff in recognition of, for example, things like mandatory trainings. And other organisations are delivering humanitarian training publicly, for example. So issuing to anybody that wants to earn a badge. And this is just an example of what a My HPAS profile looks like. So this is a mocked up one, so it's not a real person, but Victoria Kipchumba. So she's got a little bit of detail about herself there. And then she's just got 3 badges and she can make them private or public as she chooses. She can share this profile and she can also set up little, sub profiles on particular themes and things. And we've got around 20,000 users at the moment, which represents around 55,000 badges issued. And the majority of our users are based in sub-Saharan Africa and the Middle East, which I think reflects the fact that a lot of our users come through the Academy's Kaya platform. So the Academy has a platform called Kaya on which we have around 400 humanitarian related courses. So lots of our people take courses on there and earn badges as a result of that. So the user base kind of reflects those people. These are some of the organisations that are currently using HPass. So you can see mostly kind of INGOs, and then some smaller humanitarian training providers, some working in sort of specific thematic areas like security training, for example. And I'm just going to give sort of 3 different examples of how organisations are using badges, just to show that the way we've set up HPass is to kind of really benefit from the flexibility of the medium of digital badges. We want organisations to be able to use them to recognise things like course completions, but also membership, skills and experience, and things like that. So the first one I'm showing here is War Child. So this is their Integrity Framework Learning Path, which is their mandatory induction for all staff starting in their organisation. And so it forms a pathway. There's 5 different courses that individuals have to take, and as a result of taking those, they then get their overall framework learning path badge. Then a completely different kind of approach is, so American University of Beirut have got this Humanitarian Leadership Diploma, which is divided up into modules. So for each of those modules, you earn a digital badge, and then one for the overall diploma. And then a different one again, which is this interactive game offered by Humanitarian Leadership Academy called In 90 Days. And it offers you the opportunity to kind of put yourself in the position of somebody managing a humanitarian response and the kinds of decisions that you might have to take. And at the end of the game, you get 3 badges representing the sort of 3 characteristics that you most displayed during the game. And then I don't know if I've got much time left, but so these are just some of the kinds of things that we were, I'll just take a couple more minutes then, or 1 more minute. Some of the things that we were taking into consideration as we designed HPass. So the idea that many humanitarians are learning on the job, they might not necessarily have the time to do kind of formal assessments and things, but they have great experience that we want to be able to recognise. The fact that they work in rapidly changing contexts, they need to be able to take on new learning really quickly. And to be able to evidence that, and then that people are moving frequently between roles, need to be rapidly deployed, and need to be able to quickly sort of produce the evidence of their skills and have those verified. These are just a couple of things that have contributed to growth. So I guess partners, the fact that we've had some courses that are kind of essential learning for all humanitarians, which have been popular with lots of people. The modular approach is also very popular. It leads to kind of collector type users, you know, who really just want to earn all the badges that are out there. And then we've also seen that there's a lot of demand from humanitarians based in sub-Saharan Africa and the Middle East, at least coming through our Kaya platform. And then finally, what's next? And we're going to integrate further with our Kaya platform. And then we're also thinking about how My HPass profiles can be a way to make humanitarians aware of the kind of career paths and job opportunities that are open to them. You know, to start thinking about how an initial badge that they get might contribute to a pathway, which contributes to a career option, and then how to also make employers more aware of the badges and showcase the kind of talent that we've got available on the platform. And that's it from my side.
Thank you very much, Esther. Again, a great example of the application of badges and credentials. I think there will be some time if we can speed up for recognition of questions and answers afterwards. Now over to Dave Leaser with a great example from IBM, so from outside the UN. And please take it from here, Dave. Now,
thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me. And I just love the presentations. I feel like I'm right at home because I have the same mindset that I think everybody that is presented so far. I'll just share a couple charts with you as well. And if you'd like, I can put the link in the chat, or I can give it to you, Rolf or Armin. Let me go in here real quick here. I think you can see my screen now. But yeah, this section is really on how we map occupations to open badges at IBM, and really how we're going to be able to use badges to create a future-ready approach to the labor market. And I think that's really the key. You know, when we started the IBM program originally, the idea was that that we would drive more people to buy our products. That was it. We wanted to get more big data developers to start to buy our big data development product. We set up an online MOOC, and we thought if we added badges to it, that we might increase the number of people coming up there to download the products by maybe 10%. Well, it turned out that it was more like 695% in the completions on the exams on the end. It was unbelievable, off the charts, what badges did to attract more people to IBM. But now what's become of that is different use cases. We started out with these, kind of mercenary use cases in a way, but now we have an opportunity to really change the labor market, improve the labor market, and open opportunities for people. And that's what badges are doing at IBM right now. Just a quick, to give you an idea of a little bit of the scale of the program at IBM. We've issued more than 1 million badges so far this year. We've issued millions of badges since we started the program in 2015 was when we piloted the program. We have about 5,000 different activities that have been badged across the way. At any given time, there are several thousand that are available for people to participate in, including a lot of free ones that are available on online universities for anybody in the world to take and earn IBM badges. So we've made it we've democratized it quite strongly. And we now have a skills registry in 195 countries. We now have so many badges out there that we have this very discrete level of badge registry. So we can make very good decisions. We can understand where the talent is, where the dearths are at that nano level, down at the skills tag level in the badges, which is pretty significant for IBM. We can now do a better job of hiring people. We can do a better job of helping our customers as well. 8 reasons. I don't have to go into real detail on this thing, but I think it's important to know that these are some of the things that are top of mind. Again, I started with this whole idea of, driving people to big data university to buy our products, but it really is aligning with the pace of change, and especially in the technology sector where cloud has disrupted things to the point where, our products are changing every several weeks. And so now we have badges that can match that cadence of change. Certifications didn't do it for us, obviously. You don't get certified every few days or every few weeks. They're too expensive. But badges can be used for what I consider liquid skills. So if you think about it, if you created a certification that had a shelf life of 2 years or more, you can now apply liquid skills in kind of a T-shaped model to that. So I can have a solution architect, but then I can have a solution architect in Salesforce or something else as well down below. The demand for talent, obviously. In the United States last year, I think there were 1.9 million graduates that graduated with a bachelor's degree in the United States. By comparison, Credly, one of the providers of badges, issued 12 million digital badges last year. Now, obviously, they're non-degree, right? But you can see the idea of how much we can scale, and we can develop these skills, and we can also signal readiness at scale that we couldn't before. The discrete skills, I talked about that, number 3, being able to allow for this resource planning. We have it down to the level now that we know exactly where the gaps are. And we can also, by the way, look at using inference on our database on who has what skills. We can look at the performance on them. For example, we found that people who were what were considered band 8 at IBM, that's a kind of a level of people that are real doers in the company. If they earned at least 1 skills badge at IBM, their chance of staying in the company dramatically increases several points. You think about how much that can save the IBM company by increasing engagement. So we now know, and then we can also then look at if people are flight risks. So we can see if they're missing something that other people might have. The inclusivity thing is a very big topic for me. And the reason it is because there are too many people that have been left behind by a system that is exclusive. When I think of, I have multiple degrees from colleges, good schools, but I think about all those people that have brilliant minds that never were able to get to a college. Now we have an opportunity to signal their capabilities and get them into good jobs. And I have a couple examples at this end that I think you're going to like to hear. Aligning with the way people learn, a big one here, obviously. People don't learn in a linear way, and badges have shown us that. Now that we have this badge registry, we can see that people don't take course 101 and 102 and 103. They take course 101, and then they go to a hackathon, and then they go to a web seminar, and then they go to a conference, and then they take course 102. Now we can put into the metadata in the badges recommendations. If they take course 1 or 1, we can say, maybe you want to go to the hackathon next. So we can find out, how people are really progressing, and it's very different than what we prescribe. Filling the gaps, obviously it's a big one for us. You don't want to start from scratch. I've been too many places where people are leaving, like, for example, the military, and they're being told you have to go back to school. Absolutely not the case, right? This is an opportunity for us to fill the gaps. There's too much reskilling that has to happen in the world. There's no way we can send people back to square one to start. Progression and motivation. I think several people had alluded to that as well. We found that, back to that big data university scenario, we found that people that earned 1 badge ended up earning 3 badges within a year. And it was dramatic because it's harder to get to the 3rd badge. We intentionally made it easier to get to the 1st badge. And I think that's an important design point. Get people onto the leaderboard and then help them move forward. If you tell somebody, what, you have to earn your PhD by the end of the year, that's overwhelming. But if you say, read the 1st chapter and we're going to give you a reward, it will motivate people to continue and get to that. And we found that was the case. We increased our cloud certifications by 64% when we added badges along the way. And the last one was articulating for college credit. Now we have an opportunity to take this on-the-job learning and turn it into a digital transcript. We could never do that before. We always had it locked in this learning management system, who was a compliance issue, really. But now people have personal portable transcripts. And I love the work that people are doing here to create these digital wallets, because I think that's going to be one of the big futures. And Rolf, I don't know if you want people to interrupt me along the way or wait to the end, but I'll just continue through this. The way we map or occupations to open badges is pretty straightforward. Really, it is to perform a job analysis. Now, this is very, very important because our original job descriptions included things like college degrees, 10 years of experience in X, 5 years of experience in Y. We had language in our job descriptions that was very masculine, and it turned, some people off. We also had a lot of requirements. And by the way, there's a big gender difference in those requirements. Men, we found, and I know this is supported by other data, that if you have 10 different criteria for an occupation, if men get 5 or 6 of them, they will apply for the job. Women will wait till they get 10 to get the job. And so we found we had to say, what's really necessary? What's the importance of that competency? So first of all, what is it and how important is it? Then choose a framework. It could be something as simple as the ONET database or the ESCO database. We have internal talent frameworks at IBM. And we basically then map that to a framework. And the framework, by the way, can be used across the board for everything, because the framework basically is going to give you your skills tags for your badges, your activities that are needed in the skills. Everything across the board should truly line up, from the activity that's being developed to the signal of achievement to that, to the job that it's supposed to match. If they don't line up, we obviously have problems. So frameworks are very, very important. And then assessing the individuals. We assess individuals up front. And so we have a program called Skills Build, which is a program that allows people outside of IBM to come in, take an assessment for a particular occupation. And by the way, it's a broad assessment for multiple occupations. And then it basically says, you're close to these different areas. Here's what you need to do to fill those gaps. And then, of course, filling the training with the gaps. Again, this is kind of a little bit like adaptive learning in a way, because we're not sending people back to square one, because obviously we can't really do that at scale. But the future for us is to start to look at human capabilities. And I know that this is just one example. And by the way, I have other links to deeper ones than the World Economic Forum, because the World Economic Forum's data is a little bit mixed with personality traits and some other things as well. But when you get down to it, human capabilities are going to be the area that we have to start to badge, that we have to start to look at, that we have to start to focus on when we start to build our workforces. Now, there's a study that was done. I'm going to show you a chart in a minute, but I want to tell you about something about this real quickly. There's some work being done in Australia with, I can't say the name of it, but I will say it's the largest telecom company in Australia. I'll leave it there. They're basically assessing everybody in their entire organization, because they have to reorganize 30 or 40,000 people into different companies. And so they've developed a framework and a look at these human capabilities. I think one thing that was very compelling that has come out, this hasn't been published yet, but it probably will be later this year. But they found that when they looked at human capabilities and they mapped them to their on-the-job performance, they found an interesting thing. College degrees didn't really map to anything important in the organization. It mapped to general learning ability and adaptability. Now, obviously, those are important, right? General learning ability and adaptability. But out of the 17 performance areas and the 6 major performance areas that are there, they only map to 2. So, there's a lot of opportunity to bring people into the workforce that don't have golden pedigrees. And I think that when we look at human capabilities, we have a better way to do it. I just wanted to show you this chart as well.
David, can we just go for 3 more minutes?
Okay, yeah, real quick. So then the data on this real quick is that, when we start to look at what the best predictors are for on-the-job performance, personality traits overwhelmingly are better indicators for on-the-job performance. We use a tool, by the way, to understand these called My Inner Genius at IBM. It's used in a number of different programs, a third-party tool. And what it does is it goes through in less than an hour, and it can understand at a very deep level a person's hidden skills, regardless of their education level. They don't have to go to have gone to a good school or anything like that. It provides them with a map that shows them what areas that they're highlighting. It gives them personalized reports. It gives them badges to show them that they have their readiness for this particular career. I want to show you a chart real quick here that's, I think, important. Several people have gone through this program, and I thought this was a wonderful story. There was a gentleman whose name is Domani, and if you're familiar with the United States, there's an area called South Chicago. It's not a very nice area at all. And Domani's trying to make a living for his family, young African-American man, and wanted to work. And he started a job in retail. He thought his life was going to be in retail. He went through My Inner Genius, examined his innate human skills, his human capabilities, started to map him to cybersecurity jobs, Amazon jobs, all these other things. Within less than a year, he's making $85,000 US. He is now out of poverty, and it's generational. His family now is completely out of poverty as well. So this is I think this is what really gets me excited about the idea of badges, badging things like human capabilities, bringing people out. I have a couple links here on the bottom of here that from blogs and things like that I've done. That human capability work I was telling you about is down here. And then just as a backup, I just put in some strategies to prepare for massive labor market changes on some of the enabling technologies that will surround badges to make it work. So there, I hope I didn't go too far over on it.
David, thank you so much, and sorry for pushing. I trust you will share the presentation. Very impressive, and the numbers are mind-blowing. It's incredible. So Rolf, will you just take over for the questions and answers? I saw something from Rupert coming in, and just take it from here.
Thank you so much, first of all, also to all the speakers. And there was obviously before a misunderstanding. I had a chat with Rupert on that, and he was coming after 3:30. I understood he would come before 3:30. But it's actually a great time for Rupert to show up, because Rupert is not only our Director for Strategic Partnerships at ICoBC, but also one of the leaders of the working group on what we call the 21st century skills. And I could assume that your question relates to that area. Over to you, Rupert.
All my questions relate to that area, but right. So I'll ask it specifically to David, but I think it applies to all the speakers. And apologies, I had a clash on meetings, so I tried to get out of that as soon as I could and jump across. David, I was chatting with Jim Daniels at IBM last week about various things to do with badging and credentialing. And so the question I'll ask to you is similar to one we explored last week, which is, you were talking about, for example, the military and people coming out of the military and did it then go back into formal education or various other things, right? So we see a lot of the discussion about skills and opportunities for people to evidence their talent in the workplace in a more granular and more effective way. Okay, get that. But the other part of the skills economy that we need to be addressing is the adaptability, the increased adaptability of people as they go through lives as jobs change, right? So there's a piece here about moving what they do in the workplace back into the formal education space as well as the other way. Yeah. So it does, as Rolf has touched on there, you know, from my perspective, this does link to 21st century skills and things like, you know, the skills categories or the groupings that are out there, such as the World Economic Forum example.
Rupert, sorry, can you ask a question very
shortly?
shortly?
So the question is, how are you, all of you, looking at your links of what you're doing and how that's going to work it back into the formal education space? So how is it going to link to that? Because what we want is to be able to move back and forth between the two. That's what the holy grail of where we want to get to. Yeah. So how are you doing that? Okay.
So you mean like colleges and schools?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, number one, I think that we have to start to look at human capabilities. Those are the most resilient things. Those are the things that are going to change. You can teach people things very easily. I just want to give you one real quick example, and I won't take much time, but we put together a course, a certificate course for people that was up on Coursera that was for customer support, customer service. What was interesting about the course was we talked to our customer support organization. They hire 80,000 people a year. And we started putting together this list of what we thought they needed to know, like, you know, had Salesforce, ServiceNow, and everything else. They said, no, they don't need to know that. They said they need to know hostage negotiation. We're like, hostage negotiation, you know? And the reason is because they have to talk people off the ledge when they call in and they're angry about the product. They said, we can teach them those skills in a matter of weeks. We just want to make sure they don't quit because they have an unbelievable turnover. We started developing these certificate programs, and I think that there's an opportunity now for us to start to look at some of these programs like the companies like IBM have and really start to merge them into the college experience. That's one of the things we're doing. So we created, like with MIT, we've created the micro bachelor's degree. We have a number of different courses on Coursera. There's in the United States, ACE, which is an accrediting group, will provide an endorsement for those to say these are credit worthy. And then we also then have worked with schools like Northeastern University to do that. I think this whole idea of credential as you go along the way is going to take steam, but I think it's going to take a couple major leaders to make it work. You know, let's not kid ourselves. The college system is slow. I think we have to find a couple proof points to get started.
Thank you very much, David and Rupert, for your question. So, Armin, as we are at the end of the first part of the workshop, and we still would allow some time for people to manage moving from that session to the next session. So you will find that registration link for the second session, if you have not registered yet, in the email. Armin, would you briefly wrap it up?
Just for me, just leaves you having wishing you a good bio break. If you come back to the second session again, the link is in the chat. For all of you who will be leaving us for whatever reason, thank you for being with us. Super interesting thing about portability, mobility of skills and talent in organizations. A super interesting case from David. Thank you again. If you have any questions, this is not the end. You can ask via the ICoBC website. I think we're all on LinkedIn, so just keep up the conversation, and thanks a lot. Now have a great break and see you on the other side.